welcome back to another episode of For The Ages. I'm so stoked with the guest that's going to be joining today. It is somebody who is widely known as one of the most prolific collectors of golf memorabilia around the world. He is the founder of Golden Age Auctions. Welcome to the show, Ryan Carey.
Yeah, man, excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, like I told you whenever we connected offline, uh, I've been following you for a while and just so much incredible stuff that you guys do as a company, right? And so many historic things that you've been a part of, and I'm really excited to kind of learn more about that journey. But I guess to start, it'd be great just to kind of understand your background. One, how did you get into golf? How did that all start? And then also, where did the whole collectibles and memorabilia, where did that fit into the equation too?
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is, Golden Age, including the predecessor company, this is our 20th year in business. So it's kind of wild to say that out loud. I don't think I've said that really. Um, but yeah, so 20 years ago in my law school dorm room or apartment, I started, what is now Golden Age Auctions. And it's just kind of wild to think that it's been 20 years later. I thought I was starting along with a buddy of mine at the time, Bob Zafian. I thought we were starting.
So, so yes, you were saying you were with your buddy in your college dorm room, and whenever you guys were starting it, how did that all come about?
I don't know. Like we both liked collectibles and golf collectibles. The internet, was around, but it was still kind of early days. There was nowhere to buy and sell cool golf stuff, and I was looking for it. So there was just a small group of us that like geeked out about this stuff. A few years earlier, I had started kind of a rudimentary website in college about golf flags, and so I just met a bunch of people that are into this stuff. It's supposed to be a total little side gig. None of the big auction houses at the time were really doing anything with golf. They're still really not, but they weren't doing anything golf. And eBay was kind of early, but eBay's so buyer beware. But eBay was actually probably better back then than it is now for memorabilia. And it just kind of started from that. It wasn't supposed to be something major. I thought it'd be a cool little side gig and make some money on the side. But more importantly, I thought I'd find cool golf collectibles, and that was the goal. Find cool stuff, and it turns out other people want to do the same thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, when was the threshold, or was there a time or a milestone that you hit where you realized that you actually had a sound business in place versus just like a passion project to make some money on the side?
Yeah, so our fourth year, there's two of them that come to mind. Our fourth year was in 2010. I was a lawyer at this point. I'm practicing law. It's a grind. I've got this side gig website. Some of my friends know about it. My parents don't really know about it. They think I know. I have some website, from golf website, but they don't think anything of it. And in the summer of 2010, Tiger Woods kind of talked some shit about us, and it was the best thing that ever happened to us. We got all this press. I'd never had press before, and we had a couple good sales that year. And that I probably made as much money selling this golf stuff for two auctions that year than my legal career, my budding legal career. And so as soon as that happens, it was like, oh man, I need to be focusing on this. So that was 2010, our fourth year. And then in 2013, we sold the first ever Masters Champions green jacket. The guy's name's Horton Smith. He won in 1934, again in 1936. We got his green jacket from the family. It went for 680 something $1,000. It was in Sports Illustrated. It was on CBS this morning. It was our first time really going viral, except that Tiger Woods moment. Those were the two big early moments, and that put us on the map as like a real company. We could sell real items. Once you sell something for 600 grand, you can sell anything that's less than that. Everyone trusts you. All of a sudden, you're real. You're like a bona fide company. That was the first time I remember getting international exposure, international people bidding. One of the underbidders was a Korean conglomerate, and it was just me and my buddy that have this website, and so it's just kind of that was the first like, oh my god, we've got something real here.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I was actually on a recent episode there was a little nugget of Horton Smith that came about because in my own research of the Masters, and there's a book by a great author named David Barrett, and he's got a book called Making the Masters.
Hmm.
Talks all about how Augusta started with Bobby Jones and Clifford Roberts, and then Dr. Alistair McKenzie coming in to help design the course, and how the Masters ultimately evolved. It was actually, they tried to get a U.S. Open held out there, but because of the timing and with the northern states, they wouldn't be able to go through the qualifying for a U.S. Open. So, kind of out of pressure, they had to create the Masters as a way to go about it. But Horton Smith in that first one, he won $1,500 was his paycheck, right? I think the total purse is around 5,000. And I was joking with a previous guest that so I run an annual Masters pool, and it's gotten pretty big up to this point. And the winner took home more money this year than what Horton Smith did in 1934. So it's kind of funny to see how all that has evolved.
Yeah, we see that same thing from the memorabilia standpoint, where people wonder why some of these aging champions would sell a Masters trophy, a green jacket, or mementos from their career. And one easy answer is they can't believe the amount of money someone would pay for their trophy, for instance. And uh, they don't understand. I remember, I think it was Doug Ford, 1957 Masters champion. We got his Masters trophy and a bunch of other items. And he just couldn't believe it. I think he got somewhere between 5 and 8 grand was his check for winning the Masters. And here, years later, someone's willing to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for his Masters trophy.
Yeah.
And so that happens a lot where you see that where these guys lived it. I care more about their Masters trophy than sometimes they do. I'm sure some of them cherish it. A lot of others are like, oh, that thing, I haven't seen it in years. It's been in storage. It's been in the closet. I hate how much I have to polish it, the silver. There's a lot of that, but it's the way prices have gone. It's kind of a fun payday to those guys late in their career. We saw autographs late in his life type of thing, and it's a payday for these guys, and it's a much needed one for a lot of people too.
Yeah. It's a good problem to have to worry about cleaning that Masters trophy. I wouldn't mind having that problem, but um so you actually mentioned something that I want to dive into a little bit later on in the conversation about, Horton Smith really putting you guys on the map with selling his green jacket for over 600,000, and that sort of inherently coming with legitimacy, right? And the authenticity of what you guys are doing. I want to talk about that a little bit later on as it relates to, scams and frauds and things like that. I'm sure you've seen a ton of stuff with that, but you mentioned that Tiger talked a little shit about you guys before. What did Tiger say back in, you said 2010, I think?
Yeah, 2010. It happened a couple different moments, but one of them, we had Tiger had before a few years prior left Titleist to go to Nike. He was always wearing Nike clothes, but equipment wise, he was playing Titleist first. And Tiger left, and a couple of years later, Titleist vice president at the time, he felt I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he felt betrayed by Tiger. He was like Tiger's right hand guy, and all of a sudden Tiger ditches Titleist to go to Nike. Anyways, Titleist vice president gave us Tiger's irons from the Tiger Slam that Tiger had given to him personally when he and another guy from Titleist delivered Tiger's new set of clubs right after the 2001 Masters. Tiger told him to keep the other ones that were swapping out, and so we had those. They're up for auction. Tiger was asked about them in a press conference, and Tiger alluded to the fact that he still had those clubs in his garage, essentially, saying without saying words that the ones we had up for auction weren't real. So we had to get on the offensive. We knew they were real. Everyone at Titleist knew they were real. Everyone we talked to on tour knew they were real. And so we had to go there on the offensive. We had the Titleist vice president take a polygraph test. We got all kinds of other documentation, and we proved essentially at the time that they were indeed Tiger's clubs. It still hurt the sale though. It still made them not do well at auction, but it really put us on the map. It made us have our best auction ever with all of our other items. Our registrations went through the roof. People were talking about us. It was good for us. That same set of irons is the one years later we put up for auction that sold for over $5 million. And by then, photo matching had started, where you can actually look at photos and match the actual clubs. And so it wasn't really a matter of Tiger's word anymore. Because do you remember those old Titleist cord grips, those like Golf Pride cord grips? They're unique. They're like fingerprints. The little cords and everything, the way that they're unique. It's a fingerprint of the club. And there is a photo from the 2001 Masters. Tiger Woods' 9 iron. Tiger's in his follow through, and you can see the identical cord grip to the Tiger Slam clubs. So you match the 9 iron to it, and right then and there, it didn't matter what Tiger said or Mark Steinberg said. Everyone in the collecting community knew that they were legit, and that's when the bidding on the auction. Fast forward into 2024 here, the bidding went from it was at $1 million at the time up to $5 million, all because of that. But those are those same irons from that same time back in 2010 that put us on the map.
Wow, I mean, so as you were explaining it, it makes sense. You think those full cord grips, yeah, there's going to be some natural wear on them, and being able to match that, and that being the difference maker. And then, I mean, going to the extent of the polygraph test for people too. I mean, obviously the business that you're in at that level, I mean, this is serious money that people are bidding on these items. So authenticity has to be there, right? Um, so I'm kind of curious too. So for you and getting into golf collectibles and certain memorabilia, what is your favorite thing to collect? Do you even have a favorite thing to collect? Because I'm sure you've come across so many incredible things.
Yeah, I mean, I can't collect it all, right? And that's something I had to learn a long time ago. I do kind of feel this sense of ownership of things that pass through our hands. So I like the ability to find a new home for things, and I feel like an attachment to it. I think that's my way of replacing the fact that, again, I can't just keep everything for myself. I like that. It's changed over the years, what I'm interested in, what I like. But the more I do this, and this is a pretty typical pattern that collectors go through, I start liking the older stuff, the origins of the game, old Tom Morris, things like that. I'm fascinated by that early St. Andrews, when golf was becoming, real for the first time, and passionate, from everything from the caddies and the people, that were supposed to be low class, to the gentlemen of the game. And I just love that. I love that. That's, to me, the real origin story of golf. The game started before that, but that's the kind of origins of the modern golf. I like that. But I mean, man, I just see so much cool stuff. I like so much of it, but you can't own it all.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you brought up the caddy stuff and a lot of the origins of golf in Scotland, right? There's so much rich history in Scotland. And I was traveling to Vegas last week for a conference, and I was starting to do some research on the history of caddies specifically, and kind of diving into that topic, right? I think there's so much to be said with that. And, a big feature of that is Tom Morris Sr. and Tom Morris Jr., right? But, but, you know, was there anybody that kind of influenced you with starting this, or, what were some of the first things that you recall collecting before Golden Age auctions even, really came to fruition?
Yeah, that would be my mom for sure. My mom has just always been a collector. Not always at the highest level. She liked a little of everything. She was always collecting and buying things in antique shops and garage sales, and so definitely rooted in her to a certain extent. And then I think I somehow turned that into, turning my business mind on, and how do I make this into a business or do something with it. Again, I didn't think it'd be something all that big. I don't think I thought I'd be doing this as a career, especially 20 years later. I never would have thought that. I didn't think that far ahead. But in terms of like, how do I make money on this? How do I monetize it? And then the big thing we did, the early internet was like so buyer beware, so scary. Do you send this money you don't trust over the internet? How do these things real? I can't see it in person. Photography wasn't as good back then. And we were honest from day one. We treat people with respect. We didn't sell any items that were fake, that we knew at least. And if we ever did something wrong, we stood behind it. And it is hard to explain that that was a novel concept in 2006 on the internet. If you found a Tiger Woods autograph from 2006 on the internet, there was a 99.9% chance it was fake. We were the one website that was rejecting fakes and saying, nope, that doesn't check out, don't believe it, not authenticated by anyone we've heard of, won't do it. It wasn't about the money necessarily, it was about just doing the right thing. Again, we were just honest people. There was nothing, I didn't think there was anything, another way to do it. That's just
Mm-hmm.
not the way the internet was working at the time. So we started selling things for higher prices than you could find on eBay, that you could find elsewhere. And then people started being, if they had a real item, well, who are you going to use? You're going to use us because we're getting higher prices. And then from the buyer perspective, who are you going to buy from? No, these guys. I know it's legit. I'm paying a little more, but I know it's legit. And that just snowballed from there. And that it honestly is still true today, where we don't cut corners, we don't sell something we don't stand behind, and that's how we get the record prices is by doing that. We've done the homework before it goes up for auction, and we're rarely wrong because we've done our due diligence.
Yeah. Can you talk to me a little bit more about what that due diligence includes? I mean, whenever you're going to source some of these items, right? Where are you sourcing them from? How are you ensuring that they are truly authenticated and legit before you even put them on, your site or out to auctions?
Yeah, there's really two factors there. It's quality and then authenticity. So we don't just put things up for auction that we can think we can make a quick buck on or aren't that nice or whatever. We've just increasingly over the years been discerning. So already the items are going through a funnel. If you were to search on eBay or something, you're going to see, you're going to weed through the junk until find the good items. You're going to weed through overpriced items to find the items that are actually the right value. We've already done that for people. So we've already done that filter. So by the time it gets on our website, we've rejected 98% of the stuff that's shown to us, maybe more. We're rejecting way more than we're ever accepting. And then it's authenticity. Part of that is also just accepting only authentic items. Authenticity is always people's first question. It's not as hard as people expect. Most items are rather self authenticating. This item is what it is. This trophy is from this person. It is what it is. And then the items that need third party authentication, you just find the trusted source there. If it's an autograph, well, there's only three companies that we really accept autographs from. And if one of those third parties says it's real, any auction house in the world basically deems it to be real as well. And so forth like that, where you find the right person. And occasionally you can't. We get so many emails and phone calls from people that Rory gave me this ball on the seventh hole at the Masters last year or whatever. Okay, well, no photos are allowed to be taken there. You don't have your cell phone with you. You don't have any photos of it. How do I verify this? We just get so much of that where the items are probably real, but we can't sell things based on a story. So we're constantly dealing with that battle. But again, by the time it's on our website, we stand behind it, and that's how you get the big numbers because we've already rejected a lot of the questionable stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, you've got to be so thorough with all of that. And, as you were kind of explaining some stuff earlier that you've kind of had to learn to not get too attached to some of these items, I would have such a hard time, letting some of those things go. I mean, I would probably have a warehouse full of stuff, and maybe you do, right? But
Yeah, that's part of it though. That's part of the ownership once it goes through us. So like you get that like attachment to it that way. That's how you have to look at it.
yeah, yeah. And also, too, you got to pay for that law degree somehow. So you had to turn it into a business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, whenever you think of what the single most valuable piece of memorabilia or a collectible is that you've held in your hands personally, what comes to mind?
So, I mean, the auction record, and it will be for years to come, I think, would be the Tiger Slim irons. So then, how do you get something more valuable than that? It'd have to be pretty significant. I haven't held Tiger's putter that he used to win, 14 with 15 majors. I haven't held it, but that's the easy answer as to the most valuable. A fun one is there are two golf balls on the moon that Alan Shepard hit. Someone will retrieve those one day. They are sitting on the moon. Uh, NASA knows where they are. We have the exact coordinates of where they are. They're sitting there on the moon. Someone will get those one day. In the Smithsonian, the USGA, I don't know which one has it on display right now, but the actual golf club that Alan Shepard, the astronaut, swung on the moon would have to be one of the most valuable artifacts there is. And things like that. There's some incredible paintings out there. To me, those are kind of the grail pieces that keeps me in this hobby, that keeps me interested. That there's always something that maybe I'll never obtain, but that's the really cool stuff for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just the the Tiger Slam irons, those, I mean, Tiger Woods is a big reason why I got into the game of golf. So, like many of us, right? I mean, he, the Tiger effect has had so many different impacts on so many different aspects of the game, and there's always the GOAT debate of, who is the greatest of all time and things like that. But I don't think anybody can argue that Tiger has certainly had the most influence out of anybody in the game. Um, and to me, what's really fascinating and why I was so excited to talk to you today too is, when I think of golf collectibles and certain pieces of memorabilia, it really is kind of like a time machine, right? More than just a material item. And there's so much rich history in the game, right? We talked about this yesterday whenever we were catching up. Baseball does such a phenomenal job of preserving its history. It's America's pastime, right? There's so much tradition and history with baseball. Golf is now getting to that point, and golf has really exploded, especially since the pandemic, where keeping those stories alive. I think they're, and clearly because of the success of Golden Age auctions, clearly there's an audience for this kind of stuff too.
Yeah, we've seen that expand over the years in that I think people used to, I was say playing golf with somebody and they're asking me what I do, and I tell them it used to be like, oh, I don't collect golf stuff, or I don't collect. And then you start talking to people more, and or maybe explaining the business a little more. And I'm like, all right, well, have you played any good golf courses? Oh yeah, I love Marion. I love this. All right, cool. Well, do you want a club history book, an antique book from Marion? Oh yeah, that'd be pretty cool. What about a wicker basket that was used on the course? Oh my God, you can find those? And you start talking to them, and you're like, yeah, we sell all that stuff. So it's
Yeah.
not, these aren't baseball cards. It's not like a defined set where a defined person, whether you collect them or not. If you like golf, you probably will see something on our website that interests you. Whether you want to own it or not, that's up to you. But there's going to be something that interests you, that piques your interest. It could be, a statue of Ben Hogan for your home office, a Rory signed Masters flag for your wall. There's just so many things that, I think we have expanded the most by getting some of those casual golfers, or maybe serious golfers that are casual collectors, or maybe don't even identify as collectors, but just see something and think it's cool. And that's the great thing. Whenever we get press, we're happy. We're fortunate to get like a lot of good press from Golf Digest, especially, but also the other golf blogs and websites and magazines and such. Every time we handful of new people that register that are just golfers that had never maybe heard of us before,
Mm.
maybe heard about the Tiger Slam sale, something like that, and they go to our website and they see something that piques their interest. And maybe it's a famous golf course they played before. Maybe it's something from Scotland and they went on a trip there with their dad once or their son once. And so we actually get to sell things to people that don't identify as collectors at all. In fact, I think that's kind of our fastest growing group of bidders are these people that would never identify as a collector in a million years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, kind of the dichotomy between if somebody self-identifies as a collector or not, but when you peel back the layer of that onion, they kind of are, right? But
Yeah, if you're a golf collector, you already know about us. But if you've ever been to Scotland and played golf, or you've ever played a top 100 golf course, or are a big fan of the PGA Tour, or read books on Ben Hogan or Bobby Jones, yeah, we probably have something that would at least pique your interest.
yeah, yeah. I mean, so you know, my wife and I we're actually planning a trip to Charleston coming up in June, and I somehow convinced her to extend the trip by a day so we could go down to Kiowa and stay at the
Mhm.
Kiowa Resort and booked a tea time at the Ocean Course. Unfortunately, I injured my knee playing softball of all things, and I'm now going to have to get surgery on it. So I completely tore my ACL. I tore my meniscus as well, and surgery is imminent, right? That does not fix itself. So I was so bummed out because one of the first things I'm sitting in the emergency room is I'm like, shit, I'm not going to be able to play at the Ocean Course now. Well, and going through all of the process, this is all new to me because this never happened to me before, thankfully, knock on wood. But the surgeon that I'm working with here in Austin, shout out to Dr. Ellens. He's the best of the best here in Austin, Texas, at Austin Sports Medicine. And what he said was, I really want you to get back to as full range of motion as possible. So a lot of it is just through PT work. So I have been busting my butt in PT. There's a company that I'm going to. It's called PT Solutions, and I'm working with a physical therapist, Steve, and he's been kicking my ass every which way, like legit workouts. And I was actually able to build up enough strength and more so confidence too, I would say, because it's just been kind of sketchy at times. But some of the stuff that Steve has me doing, like I might be able to get like a little old man chippy
Mm.
golf swing in. So long story short, I put that to the test this past weekend, and I kind of fanned my left foot out to like 60 degrees versus like 45. And I was able to kind of hit some little punch shots. And I told my wife, I was like, I'm not canceling that tea time yet. I'm holding out hope. So,
No, that's
um,
great. But that's the great thing about golf, though, too, right? You got injured playing softball, which this may be your last time playing softball. Golf, on the other hand, um, most people, depending on injuries and such, can play most of their life. It's the only sport, if not one of the only sport, if you include tennis and such, but it's really the only sport you can play for as long as you can play it for. It allows you to consume golf in different ways throughout your life. Sometimes in your life you're going to be more into the PGA Tour, and some you won't. Sometimes you'll be playing more than other times, and we've noticed that with collecting. So I mentioned we started 20 years ago now. If you look at our bidders in that first auction, over 50% of them are still my clients 20 years later, because like nobody used to be a golfer. You're either a golfer or you're not. Not many people like quit the game entirely. No one was like, oh yeah, I tried it, but I wasn't into it, or someone was super into it, but it was more of a passing fad. Sure, it happens. Not a lot, man. Not a lot. Golf is going to be with you for your entire life. And man, we've just noticed that with golf collecting, where people just they stick around. They're still going to be interested in golf. I know for a fact that you are going to be interested in golf in 20 years, in 30 years, in 40 years. And that's pretty special. You can't say that about any other hobby, if you want to call it that, or sport for sure. Most other sports you just watch on TV, followed a few other ways. Golf, you can follow it in so many different ways. You can play it in so many different ways. You can travel and play golf. You can do whatever else. So it's a special game because of that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm working my tail off to get to a point so I can tee it up at the ocean course. That's my goal, is that will be my last round until I get surgery shortly after, and then I'll be out for about 5 months, is what the surgeon
Okay,
said. So that's my
but you'll be
goal.
back. Either way, you're gonna. I know you. I'm confident you're gonna play the ocean course then, or at some other point in your life, which is pretty cool. Cool to say about the game.
Yeah, yeah, but I love what you're saying too with golf being, it's a sport really based on longevity. And, for me, like I take care of my body. I played all sports growing up. I kind of, I would say I train like an athlete where I can, right? Try to, eat as healthy as possible, exercise regularly, all these things. And a lot of it really comes down to so that I can play golf for
Mm-hmm.
as long as possible. My selfish goal is to play golf until I'm at least 100 years old. And I think that
Well,
with modern advancements, with things like peptides and hormone replacement and stem cells and all these other things, I genuinely think it's possible. And, it's also that fire inside of me, that golf addict inside of me, that I want to be around for as long as possible, to experience as much as I can, right? To travel the world and play courses or go to tournaments, and being a golf history nerd too, just learning more about the game, right? I learn new stuff all the time, which is so incredible about the sport. There's always some rabbit holes you can dive down.
yeah, absolutely. One thing I think is really important. I had a grandfather that was a scratch golfer his entire life, won a bunch of kind of local tournaments, regional tournaments, and stuff. And then as soon as his game got worse, call it in his 60s, he stopped playing as much, and then not too late in his life just stopped altogether because he was used to being an elite golfer, and then once he wasn't elite, it bugged him so much and bothered him so much. But then fast forward a decade later or late in his life, he's since passed. Um, I know he would have given anything to go back and play. Who cares if he shot 5 over, 10 over, 20 over, just to be on a golf course again? And so I just know that I will never make that mistake because he, as soon as he was diminishing a little bit, he stopped playing, and he could have had several more years of some level of golf left, and he should have done that.
Yeah. Yeah. So something that I want to get your take on is more on the psychology of collecting and some, golf memorabilia. What do you think it is about people from a psychological perspective that really gets them going to have an item like so many of the awesome things you guys have on your site and through your auctions?
Yeah, there is something about someone that is a collector or likes to own the item that ties to something, whether it's a tournament they attended, whether it's related to a golfer they love, like Bobby Jones or Ben Hogan or even Rory McIlroy. There is something about owning something and that connection to it. Not everybody gets it or understands it. My wife, for instance, doesn't understand why you would own a trophy of a guy that lived 80 years ago and played golf that you don't know and he's not related to you. She doesn't understand it at all. And I'm like, no, these guys would love to have a Masters trophy of this person or some keepsake of Arnold Palmer. She doesn't get it. It's just not something that she understands. Other people, that's how they feel that connection, to own it, to look at it, to hold it, to reminisce with all of that stuff. People are just built different. Some people it resonates with, others would never want to own that in a million years. Someone that sees a Mickey Mantle game used Yankees jersey and thinks that this is the ultimate collectible. Someone else sees it as someone else's dirty clothes. It's just like that. And so some people identify with that or not, but there is that sense of connection to the event, and owning it, and just that's how you feel the ultimate kind of connection to it. You didn't just see it in a museum. You didn't just read about it. Look, this is the actual piece from this. It just really resonates with some people where it is just a lifelong pursuit. It's a passion, and everyone kind of experiences it in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife sounds similar to your wife. She doesn't understand some of these things. She understands how much it means to me, so she enjoys that aspect. But suffice it to say, in order for me to get to the kind of collector that I want to be at, we're gonna have to work some things into the budget for some of the stuff I saw on your site that I was poking around on. I'm like, man, I've got to have this in my collection at some point and put it up in my home office. But so you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, some things that people may or may not be aware of from a collectible standpoint. But what golf item right now is sitting in someone's garage or in an attic that is going to be worth a fortune sometime in the future?
That's a great question. Let me think. Items connected to specific moments. Unfortunately, so many great pieces are lost to history. People that got something from Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus, but they didn't document it in a certain way. There's so many things like that maybe your average person doesn't have, but this golf ball that was used by Arnold Palmer, this special moment, these clubs, things like that. And then the other thing is just something that is rare and desirable, but people wouldn't really know it. So it's so hard to quantify what that item is, but we are entering a period where the best of the best items, the rarest of the rare items, are highly desired. Um, Advertising pieces and figures and things like that you could probably find at a flea market or garage sale. Some of them have a tremendous value to the right collectors, but you can't just easily Google them or see them or know what they are. As opposed to golf clubs aren't usually valuable. I always tell people that find their grandfather's clubs or whatever in the garage. The problem is almost nobody has ever thrown away a good golf club. Have you ever thrown away your golf clubs? I've never thrown away a golf club. They just hang around in your garage. Most people have their dad's clubs somewhere. and your old clubs from high school or college, and they just kind of hang around. They almost all don't have value. There is one major exception. Two, if you count ping putters, there are some old ping putters that you can find, and depending on where it was made and when it was made, they have some value. The one big exception is Scotty Cameron putters, especially because they can be refinished now. Old, beat up, rusted out Scotty Cameron putters are still worth 150, $200 or whatever. They're not going to be make you worth a fortune necessarily. It's hard to find the really, really rare ones, but even your average one, people find all the time at us played against sports or a garage sale or whatever, because even the beat up ones, some will refinish and still want. So that's kind of a neat one. There's some guys have done really good things with finding those. And they're just guys that are good at being on the hunt of finding cool stuff. And it's not that you got to find it at a garage sale. That's going to be really hard to do. But it's just being able to, on the internet or on a Facebook group or an Instagram group, or whatever, just sift through all the junk to what actually has value. What actually is someone going to be interested in years to come? And there's a lot out there. Every week we hear from somebody that finds it. We are lucky that we are kind of the ultimate destination of that stuff. I don't have to go find those things. But if somebody discovers something great and they ask around or they start emailing people around, they usually find their way to us, and we get to help sell these kind of amazing discoveries. I mean, we've sold, President Eisenhower's clubs that somebody found in a garage, things like that. Like, you just never know what you can find. There is so much out there.
Yeah, you mentioned the Scotty Cameron aspect of it, and I mean, I have my own small collection of Scotties that has been a work in progress over the course of my golfing life, and Scotties are hard to beat, and what they can do now, to your point, with refinishing and refurbishing those clubs is absolutely incredible. And as you were kind of talking about that too, I kind of went back to I don't know if you ever saw that show Garage Pickers on the History Channel, where those guys would just drive all over the country, and like that's not feasible for 99.99% of us, right? But but I actually have set up some notifications on estate sales. So
Mm-hmm.
anytime golf clubs are put into, one of the listings on estate sales within a certain mileage radius, I'll get notifications about that. And if I see in the pictures something that kind of piques my eye, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go check that out. Um, but outside of that, obviously time is the biggest constraint to go out and hunt for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we have some people that have had just tremendous success doing it. Some of it's just luck based, obviously, but some guys are good at it. Whether it's they're on all the different Facebook groups and whatever else and monitoring that stuff. There's some people that have done just amazing things, or finding items that are at the wrong auction. It's an auction, a local auction for something kind of an estate sale type thing, and there's some good stuff in there. So I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's probably almost every day. 90% of the time, it's nothing all that special. I mean, they're really great. They're really good at it.
Looks like your connection might have
Yeah,
spun out
I
a
think
little
we
bit, but
buffered for a minute. You back?
yeah, I caught what you said. So if you'll humor me, I did some research in preparation for this podcast, really just kind of wanting to understand some of the history, and I want to learn from you too. Obviously, as the expert, been doing this for 20 years. But really, how did this all start? The origins of golf collectibles and memorabilia, and doing research. A lot of it obviously started back closer to like the 1700s, 1800s, and this is over in Scotland and Ireland and the UK effectively, where a lot of people were starting to collect things like feathery golf balls or long nose clubs or silver medals and just other artifacts of certain clubs. And then what I was able to discover is that kind of by the early 1900s is when things started to ramp up a little bit more. You've got people like Bobby Jones who entered the equation, and Bobby Jones was, one of the most well known, if not the most well known athletes of the time globally, right? And, so many things with him were documented, and, autographs started to become a bigger thing with signed photos and some of his championship medals. Of course, him winning the Grand Slam, right, was a big deal. So that put a lot of things on the map, created that value of things with Bobby Jones, and of course, then starting the Masters, and founding Augusta National, right? So that obviously had so many different things too. But kind of pausing there for a second, when you think about, call it the Bobby Jones era, is that kind of where you think that this whole golf collectibles, golf memorabilia really started to take hold because of people like a Bobby Jones and the creation of Augusta and the Masters?
Yeah, I'd say earlier golf collecting was happening, but it's probably more from a historical standpoint. Um, the first golf collecting book was 1910. This guy Harry B. Wood assembled this insane collection of clubs and balls, and published a book, Golfing Curios and the like. So he's the first true golf collector. He had a phenomenal collection. So the fact that he was collecting to a high degree, I mean, his collection is, there's very few people today in 2026 that have a collection like his. Maybe nobody. That's how good it was. And so the fact that he did that in 1910, before the, decades, a century before the internet, almost, like, that's just crazy to me. Bobby Jones, definitely in America, at least, for autographs and things like that. Bobby Jones was of the same era as Babe Ruth, and then some other boxers and stuff like that. But it's the Babe Ruth era where we cared about celebrity a lot. Those were some, the years of some phenomenal Notre Dame football teams and stuff, where we cared about the New York Yankees and Notre Dame football, and Babe Ruth was a larger than life figure. And you started seeing that, autograph, people seeking autographs and everything. Obviously, you had the Roaring 1920s then and everything. That was a huge part of it. The Masters tournament was quite small in the early years. It was a regional tournament, it was an invitational tournament. It was more of, and you see newspaper clippings and they call it Bobby's tournament or Bobby Jones's tournament. If he wasn't affiliated, there's almost no chance to succeed. It almost failed. The club declared bankruptcy at least once or twice. It was not successful at first. It was a regional tournament, but Bobby Jones was playing golf again. Got to realize Bobby Jones came back and played in it, and that's the main reason why people were paying attention. Um, but it wasn't successful, at least to the degree that you and I think it was, for many decades after that. But Bobby Jones was huge for collecting, absolutely. And then I think you got to look towards Arnold Palmer. Arnold Palmer probably signed more autographs than probably almost any human in history. He may be the human that has signed the most autographs. It is absolutely remarkable, because he was that right amount of celebrity in a sport like golf, where you can actually get around the golfers and be there in the proximity. It's not like a football stadium or something. And the fact that he loved the fans and loved the crowd and loved the attention, and didn't mind signing and signing and signing and signing. And he did it his whole life. So that probably made a lot of people, that was probably their first golf collectible they owned, was something that Arnold Palmer signed for them, or signed for their dad or their mom or something. And so that, I think, really springboarded that kind of idea of collecting, with this connection to an athlete. Jack Nicklaus has a much better record, but Arnold Palmer was absolutely beloved by pretty much everyone they ever encountered. And so I think that was a big part of what made golf collecting where it is today.
Yeah, yeah. The Masters is has such an incredible story of its founding. You mentioned that they declared bankruptcy. Yeah, they did it, and a group of members ended up buying the club. At that time in the 30s, there weren't a lot of people lining up to buy golf courses because of the Great Depression, right? And I recall, and some of the books that I've read too, that Bobby, he kind of took the position of, shame on me if I were to invite people to my course and my tournament, and I'm not willing to sit there and tee it up with them. So more so from kind of a moral perspective, I guess, but also from an economic perspective too, right? He knows that at that time, Augusta was difficult to get to. You didn't have, what is it, I-20 that goes from Atlanta down to Augusta National. That wasn't a thing. So it was much more difficult to get there. This is before you had, PJs lining up out the door too. So, so many different things that happened there. What was interesting too, and I don't know if you are familiar with this story or not, but the naming of the Masters was actually a contentious topic with Bobby Jones and Clifford Roberts. And the way that it went down was Bobby Jones really loved the name the Augusta National Invitational Tournament. It's kind of a mouthful to say. That's what he really liked. Clifford Roberts really leaned more into calling it the Masters, and they kind of had their own internal disagreements about this. Well, as the lore would have it, allegedly Clifford Roberts leaked the name the Masters to the media, and the media took it and ran with it. So it kind of then became the de facto name of the Masters because Clifford Roberts decided to leak it to the media years and years ago.
Yeah, I mean, we can see that in the early Masters tournament memorabilia. The first 4 years of the tournament, the tickets associated with it. There's a program that was released for the first 2 years, 1934 and 1935. They both say Augusta National Invitation Tournament on it. And then if you look at the wire photos from back then, the press photos all refer to it as the Augusta Invitational, Bobby's Tournament, things like that. Some of them do recall it, they call it the Masters Tournament, even early on. So it makes sense to what you're saying about leaking to the press. The press was at least calling that as an informal name quite early. And then you see in 1938, so the fifth playing of the Masters is when it takes on the Masters Tournament as a name. Interestingly, if you geek out about grammar stuff, it's Masters with an apostrophe after the S for 1938 and maybe 1939. I can't remember.
Mm.
And then they dropped the apostrophe later on. But yeah, that was absolutely the case, and that makes those from a collecting standpoint, any early keepsake from the Masters is not only collectible because it's early Masters, but it's also pretty cool that like the first Masters program doesn't say Masters Tournament; it says Augusta National Invitation Tournament
Yeah.
with a nearly identical logo to today. But yeah, super cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned Arnold Palmer playing such a massive impact too in this industry, right, of collectibles. And it's no surprise because I mean he had such a big influence on the game overall. And it was also from a timing perspective, call it from the 50s to the 70s when broadcasting really started to take off too. And you started to get away from, just the radio, and then you had televisions, and then televisions became a household thing, and then color TV was a big thing as well, especially in the Arnold Palmer days, where then some of that flashier apparel and things like that were starting to stand out more on TV. And then I mean Arnold Palmer, R.I.P. But he was a handsome man back in the day, so the ladies obviously loved him, and then all the men, were drawn to him because he was a veteran and he was just so personable. I mean, how could you not like Arnold Palmer, right?
Yeah, and he played the game in a fun way too. He made it seem fun out there, not just the smiling, having a good time, but just the way he played. It was
Yeah,
absolutely. It's almost like Phil Mickelson later on, like where you just like, have you ever seen anybody play like this before?
yeah, yeah. And as I was doing all my research leading into this too, what I was finding was kind of around the 80s and 90s time frame, so called post Jack Nicklaus, post Arnold Palmer and their primes, right, in their heyday, is whenever more of the antiques started to become a thing as far as collectibles. So the game obviously grew a lot because of the broadcasting, because of key guys, starting with the Ben Hogans of the world, um, and then evolving into Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, Arnold Palmer, really blowing things up at that point, and then more of like kind of the antique collecting starting around that 80s and 90s time frame. All of the master's badges or yardage books and all the different collectibles that then were starting to come to light as well. And then, we already touched on this earlier a little bit too with the Tiger effect, right? Where he blew up the game in a way that we'd never seen before, because this is one of the first times we had seen somebody actually play the game besides a Ben Hogan or a Gary Player, I would say, but really attack it like an athlete, right? He was training like an athlete, just the aggressiveness behind his swings, but still just the precision was incredible. And that really then started to kick off so many other things as far as collectibles. But obviously you mentioned, the Tiger Slam irons that you guys successfully sold for, and that was back in 2024, right? That you
And
guys did that?
I think I said that wrong. I think it's probably 2022, but yeah, right
2022.
around then. Yeah.
But what other Tiger stuff have you seen that's just like that people just have to have it, where you see the bids just, people just get into these massive bidding wars?
Yeah, I mean, Tiger started with, and it still kind of continues his autographs. If you've ever been around Tiger at a tournament, it is exceedingly difficult to get his autograph. He doesn't sign a lot of them. He's very strategic. He's going to go up to little kids or old ladies, and he's going to pick, he's going to sign the back of your hat sideways, or he's going to get your ticket and, turns the back or whatever. He's not giving you a primo autograph in the middle of a Masters flag. That's quite rare. And so the difficulty in getting Tigers and his global superstardom, quick rise to it, meant nobody had anything. And so and that's pretty much sustained to this day. As you know, Tiger's not exactly easy to get around and get a favor from or whatever else. Even other players have a tough time getting Tiger to sign something. So there's been no supply of Tiger autographs for just years and years and years. And so when Tiger, when he signed a deal with Upper Deck to do autographs, when they first came out, I don't remember the price, but it was well over $1,000 for a signed flag at the time, if not $3,000 or $4,000. And the price seemed silly and ridiculous, and we'd never seen anything like it. And here we are, 20 something years later, and it's not that much different. Whereas anyone else in their career, either they'd be less desirable 20 years later, or they would have signed so many autographs that there's not a lot of value there. Tigers kind of stayed at this consistent state, and there's just tens of thousands of people that want his autograph. So autographs have just always been king for Tiger Woods. And it's, we were fortunate. I mean, a lot of starting a successful business is just good fortune and timing and the luck that goes with that. You have to have the right idea, but you got to be lucky on the timing of stuff. For me, it was starting an internet company, an internet, auction house, which is really an online marketplace. Um, when I had no business doing so, I was not someone that's already a big deal in this industry. I didn't know. It's not that I didn't know what I was doing, but I didn't have access to stuff. There were guys that were way more prominent than me. They're already doing this. You mentioned the antiques, things like that. That stuff was popping off way before me. I just happened to put it on the internet first and do it in a structured way, and the internet took it from there. We get a fair amount of credit in the auction industry for being the first or one of the first to not have an auction catalog. We were only online. We're an online marketplace, which it was rather novel in 2006. We may have been the only ones to ever do it at the time. Everyone printed auction catalogs and mailed them. But the reason I did it that way was I could not afford to print auction catalogs or mail them. So I had no choice. It was not strategic. I didn't have the money to do it. The bigger auction houses did it because they had more money than me. As much as we get credit for doing that, I don't consider us a pioneer in doing that because it was the only option at the time. Obviously, that's what took off. It allowed people all around the globe to look at our website, to buy things. We got cool stuff, and we got good prices. We got more good stuff. In the auction industry, you either crash and burn, or it just snowballs and you keep getting bigger and bigger. And the reason is it's very difficult to merge a buyer with the seller in a very public fashion. If you have one bad auction, everyone just wants to avoid you. And how are you going to get good items, or whatever? And so if you're good, though, you'll keep getting more. I always say I'd never want to be the second best auction house in the category. You
Yeah.
have to win your category, because who's going to give an item to a second? If your grandma had a Picasso, okay, cool. Who sold the most expensive Picassos? Christie, Sotheby, give it to them. One was better at it, give it to them. And that's just the way our industry's always been. And Tiger was probably the reason why it worked. If Tiger didn't exist, we sold other stuff, but people's love for other things was also related to Tiger. If they wanted to buy a Masters tournament item, even if it was unrelated to Tiger, it was still kind of related to Tiger, right? Their love of the tournament was probably related to Tiger. The reason why I was getting the viewership numbers was because of Tiger. The reason you and I got into the game, or got into the game at a big level, was because of Tiger. So Tiger had a massive effect on our company, our industry, and you couldn't measure it because some of it's just indirect. But absolutely the right time. Tiger's already well in his career when I started it, But that was the basis of it. That was the origins of it. And that's a big part of what people collected at that point. And then later on, we got into the antiques and we got into other items. But at first, we were just seen as the Masters guys, the Tiger guy, like these guys that get some of that new age stuff. Oh, they got this website, and the established players didn't pay attention to us because of that.
Yeah, I like that. You guys, you got, while some may view it as strategic in air quotes of not printing, you guys being forced to do that and became pioneers by doing that. So,
You get
um,
credit times, you get credit things you don't deserve. I get credit right now for our Scotty Cameron sales and the prices we're getting for Scotty Cameron and what we're doing with that market. But the fact of the matter is, I probably waited way too long to get into it. I had Scotty Cameron putters, and I even collected them, geez, more than 20 years ago. And we didn't get into Scotty Cameron putters in a big way, at least until about 4 years ago. So I can get credit now, but in reality, I think I was probably about a decade too late. But it worked out. We were getting record prices for Tiger Woods backup putters that were from Scotty Cameron. So we weirdly had all the record prices, all the world record prices for Scotty Camerons. But if somebody emailed me with this awesome Circle T, I'd said no to it. I wasn't interested. I didn't see it as something that fit our collectibles, our clients, and I was wrong because man, these Scotty Cameron collectors are fanatical. It is an obsessive group, and it has been amazing.
yeah, yeah. What do you see more modern collectors chasing?
Right now, Rory's hot, but there's not enough Rory stuff to go around. I can't find good Rory stuff. I can get some autographs here and there, and some flags and some badges, things like that. But there's just not a lot of Rory stuff on the market. These younger players, they make so much money that they're never going to need or really want to sell things. I'm hoping someone will do it for charity reasons and things like that. But you can't just the number of Rory emails we get from people looking for stuff, and I'm like, there's just not a lot out there. There's not even a lot of golf cards out there. There's just not a lot of Rory stuff. That's something I wish there was more of, but that'll grow for sure. Scotty Cameron putters, man. Scotty Cameron, it's an absolute force, especially with the younger group. It's international. It's the Asian countries. It's weirdly hard to pinpoint someone who's a Scotty Cameron collector. It spans so many, I mean, generations even, but decades. We got Scotty Cameron buyers that are 80 years old, and we got Scotty Cameron buyers that are in college. So that's a kind of a fascinating one to me. And there's just so many of them. There are so many people that love Scotty Cameron. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I'm kicking myself a little bit because so I grew up in the Houston area here in Texas, and all through high school I worked at a course called Redstone. At the time it was called Redstone, and they hosted the Shell Houston Open. And when Rory first emerged onto the PGA Tour, he went out to play the Shell Houston Open. And during those weeks, as an employee, I was like one of the outside cart guys, in high school, right? All that we had to do was we had to pick the range balls, and the volunteers did everything else, right? And I remember sitting there watching him practice for, I mean, it had to have been a solid hour. And he's, practicing his short game and hitting chip shots and pitch shots on the same green that I practice on when I'm not on the clock, right? And to see just how good he was. I mean, it was impressive, but it was also discouraging at the same time because I'm sitting there watching him hit these shots, and I kid you not, Ryan, he hit several dozen balls from all different positions, and I don't think he hit a single one outside of 3 or 4 feet. It was just incredible, and he was, you know, 18, 19 years old. This is pudgy face Rory, just coming onto the scene, and now looking back, I'm like, man, I would have certainly been able to ask for something like that. It was discouraged, whenever you worked there, but people were kind enough to do it, especially if you caught him at the right time. Kind of kicking myself for not jumping on more Rory stuff in that time period.
Yeah, from a collector standpoint, it's the last, 20 years has really been for modern players, for current players, active players. It's been Tiger and then not much of anyone else. We've seen a little interest in Scotty Scheffler for sure. There's other pockets where there's a little, Mickelson had a following for a little while. It is definitely waning. Um, but Rory's the first one since I've been doing this. Not of I'm talking about Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus and stuff, but of the active players, um, Rory's the first that has a chance to be collected for decades to come. I think if he wins a couple more majors, especially, um, he's got a chance to be kind of this generation's Arnold Palmer. So we're starting to see that, and I hope it sustains. I really do, and we need that. We need more of the current PJ Tour players to be to be collected. Right now, I mean, Tiger's 50 years old and we're still getting I get emails every day looking for Tiger stuff, and not much of anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, obviously, I selfishly wish that Tiger did a little bit more just so I could have some stuff in my collection, but memories can be collectible to some extent too. So when you think of, all of the items that you guys have dealt with over the years, what would you say is the rarest Masters item that has come across your desk?
The rarest Masters item, my favorite. There's only four known full week tickets, what we would call a badge today. There's only four full week badges to the first Masters tournament that are known to exist. Augusta National has one. I've sold two of them, and there's a fourth one out there. So to me, that's kind of the grail piece of that ticket to attend the first Masters. This was anybody could have gone back then. Anyone could have bought a ticket for a few dollars, and to actually be there, walking around and watching the first Masters. I think that's the coolest piece. One thing that's hot right now is the early photography, the early photographs of the Masters tournament in Augusta National. Photographs are scorching hot the last few years, and seeing those early ones where Augusta National is under construction, or Bobby Jones is surveying the course for the first time, or watching the guys like Bobby Jones and Walter Hagen play in the first Masters or second Masters tournament. That stuff I think is super cool. It's very visual. Some of these photos you've seen before. These are iconic photos. Some of them you haven't, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this was the most famous course in the world now under construction. So photography has been super hot because again, it's that connection to this famous course, this famous moment. So that's kind of another one that I'm particularly interested in kind of watching from a collecting standpoint.
Yeah. It'd be cool to come across Gene Sarazen's Forwood at some point.
So the ball is at Augusta National. I think they may have the club as well.
I
Off the
wouldn't
top of
be
my head, I
I
can't
wouldn't be
remember.
surprised. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
wouldn't.
think they I
Yeah.
think they might have it. It's a Wilson club and ball. I think I could be wrong on that. No, I think they're both Wilsons. And I'm pretty sure it's there. I know the ball is there for a fact. It's on like a plaque hanging at Augusta National. I think they have the club too. I think they do. So
And
we know where that is.
I think that's probably right. There
Yeah.
are certain things that they should certainly keep for the club's preservation
Yeah,
and
but a
things
lot
like
of
that.
clubs and balls are lost to history. The player didn't always like immediately retire it right away and say, "Oh my God, let's document this." So a lot of those, I'm always fascinated by the actual ball that sinks in the cup to win a major championship.
Hmm.
I think 98% of them are lost forever. Where is the ball that Nicholas, with the yes sir, with the club up, the putter up in the air? Where's that ball that like I guarantee put it in his pocket and you don't know where that ball is because no one documented stuff like that. And that's why you mentioned earlier that Major League Baseball is phenomenal at this. I think it started probably. I think it was the McGuire Sosa chase where they started, unless it was Bonds. One of the home run chases, they started documenting baseballs from major moments and tagging them a certain way so you knew it was that moment, understanding that the ball could be hit out of the park at any moment, so you need to document this and prove it's the one. Golf doesn't do that. There's been some people starting to do it and stuff, but it's just not done all that much. And I think that's kind of sad for the past, but hopefully we're getting there in the future. I know Rory's people were working on that with the Grand Slam, kind of keeping some of the items to make sure it's documented for history's sake. But for a lot of that 1986 Master stuff, the putter that Jack used, he lost it. He thinks maybe one of his kids gave it to a friend or something. We do not know where the McGregor response putter that Jack used in the 86 Masters, we do not know where it is. And that would be one of the most iconic artifacts, museum worthy pieces that this game's ever had.
My goodness. Yeah. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, even, Tiger's ball that he chipped in on 16 with in '05, that, I'm sure he's got that stash somewhere, but
I don't know. I could ask Steve Williams to find out if he knows. I don't know that balls often get, maybe Stevie kind of like recognized it was an iconic moment, but keep in mind they're trying to win a damn tournament like that, like keeping track of a golf ball. I don't know. I don't know that he did.
yeah. He also
Yeah.
went on to bogey 17 and 18 right after that, so he might have just chucked it away, not
I'm
knowing.
pretty sure Stevie swapped it out after 17 or something. I think he told me, or wasn't sure. The ball he pulled out with on 18 was not the same as on 16. Um, I'm almost positive on that.
Yeah.
But
Have
where'd
you
that ball
ever
go? Yeah.
Yeah, have you ever talked to anybody at the PGA Tour about formalizing something to kind of get more in line with what baseball does to really, get a foundation in place?
The PGA of America is working with a company to do that. So the PGA Championship's doing that. The Ryder Cup's doing that. I don't know if anyone at the PGA Tour are doing that right now, but there is a company working for the PGA of America. Actually, I think they're owned by the PGA of America. It's like a startup. They are doing it. I hope it takes off. I hope it's successful. The problem with that is you are spending money to do something that most people don't care about or doesn't seem to generate any money. So I think it should happen for historical sake. I want it to exist, but convincing the PGA Tour to do this all the time, they just are they going to do it? Are they going to spend the money to not make any money? I don't know. And keep in mind the players are all independent contractors, so I'm sure they'll be willing to let them do it. But how do you pull it off? But yes, what they've been doing with the Ryder Cup and the PGA Championship, I think the company's called the Realist. They're owned by the PGA of America. They will go up to Scotty Scheffler, for instance, and go to his manager and say, "Hey, can we tag some of these items ahead of time? The bag, the shoes he's wearing, the clubs he's things like that, a certain way." And I hope that takes off. I hope it's successful because that would be really good for looking back on the history of golf.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what would you say is the most absurd item that you guys have ever come across?
Let's see, absurd that we sold. Man, I can't think of anything too absurd. There are all kinds of absurd John Daly items floating around where he signed the Miller Lite can or a Diet Coke can and things like that. So there's some interesting John Daly stuff. That was more popular probably 10, 15 years ago than right now. But John Daly has some absurd things for sure. Um, Man, I can't think of a great answer right there. A lot of it's just everyone's interested in different things. So some things people would be absurd to some people, and other people would love to have them. And so, yeah, I think it really depends. I mean, to some people, I mentioned earlier, like used clothing of guys, like they would be like, "What is
Yeah.
that?" And it's like I don't know. One of my clients has Rory's pants the from one of his major championship victories, and I'm like, cool, but like, do I sell Rory's pants? Like, I'm sure there's a value to them, but the crazy thing about that is if it's his shirt, well, that to me that's awesome. I think of it like a Mickey Mantle jersey or whatever. Like, I get that, but his pants, I'm not quite ready to go there. So I don't know if I'm right or wrong on that.
I think you're right. I mean, the shirt that he's wearing is more like his jersey. The pants,
just I don't.
I don't know, it's kind of weird, but
Yeah.
so, in your own personal golf collection, I mean, obviously you have the ability to see so many different things and you get to be very selective of what you get, but what in your personal collection is your number one, number two items?
Well, just yesterday, I was down in New York because I acquired an Andy Warhol painting of Jack Nicklaus for myself. So it is an item I've been looking for and is just an amazing, amazing piece. I will own it and enjoy it, and I will sell it eventually. And I don't know if that's a month from now or a few years from now. I don't have a timeline on it, but I've gotten more into artwork and things like that. And I'm really interested in Golden Age being the place for all of the great pieces that are out there. We were never that into artwork. We did sell an Andy Warhol painting a couple of years ago, and that got me on this quest to get the greatest golf art out of the art world and into our orbit. And because I think that the art world, it's like, oh, it's a golf piece, it's not that special, whatever. But within the golf world, it's super special. So my biggest single purchase of all time happened just yesterday. This Andy Warhol painting that I could not be more excited about.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's I think you were getting some windshield time on your way back after acquiring that. So, if you're comfortable sharing a picture with me over text, would love to see what that looks like. I could even
Happy to.
I could link it into the episode so the viewers can actually see what special piece is in your collection, your personal collection.
Yes, sir.
So
Happy to do it.
yeah, so kind of like a few rapid fire questions that I'd love to get your take on, but what modern item should people be paying attention to or keeping right now that you think is going to gain value over time?
So it's rather than a single item because this everyone's different in their interest. It's all about buying the best of the best. That means don't accumulate a bunch of small items that add up to a number. Save your money up and then buy one item. I'd rather you buy one item a year or one item every other year for the most you'll spend. You just have a higher likelihood of success that way. Um, and I want everyone to do that. I have clients that have man, they've collected hundreds, if not thousands, of items over the year, but every one of them costs $50 to $200, and so at the end, you weirdly have a collection that's not really worth anything. If they instead spent a couple thousand or a few $1,000s on some individual items, it's just so much like more likely to have gone up in value and to be something. And that can be hard for people to do. It's collect the best of the best in the category. Nothing with condition issues, nothing with any flaws, or I got a good deal on it. Overpay for the best. See something you're like, oh my god, I've never seen something that good. Because then when you sell it, the people will feel the same way. If you buy something because it's like, no, it's not quite as good, or not quite as good condition, or whatever else, just avoid it. Buy the best of the best every single time, and then when you sell it, it will still be the best of the best.
Yeah. And go to Golden Age auctions to buy the best of the best. So, what would you say is the biggest mistake that collectors make?
A lot of it's that same thing where it's they just accumulate things and they don't have a focus. So the biggest mistake is not having a focus. There's nothing wrong with buying something just because you see it and you like it. That is great, but try to be honest with yourself. 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, am I still going to be really interested in this one item, or is it just because I'm interested in it right now? Make a long term purchase if that's your reason for purchasing it. It is okay to buy things on a whim just because you think something's neat and you don't mind owning it. But if you're going to spend real money on something, be purposeful. What are you collecting? Why are you collecting it? What is your theme? And occasionally vary from that theme, go outside the theme, but don't do it very often. Be disciplined. Try to buy the best and be disciplined within your collecting thing. You'll see lots of other cool things, but most of the time you need to say, oh, that is really neat. However, I collect this stuff over here. I don't care if that's Scotty Cameron putters. I don't care if that's something related to golf course architecture. But stay within your lane and then seek out the best in that. The other good thing about that is if you stick to a category, a specific area of collecting, you can then become your own expert in that area. What are the better items in there? What is next? How do I get an even better piece? If you're just a generalist plus a little of everything, you'll just end up with a little of everything. So learn a specific area and do that, and then ask advice. Do your research. That's kind of the biggest thing where people think they're their own expert and like ask other people's opinions.
Yeah. So kind of like the art of collecting versus hoarding.
Absolutely. It's just I have so many. It's depressing. I have so many people email me and they've accumulated things. They've been guys that have been around golf for years, and they're like, I've got a huge collection. I've been a golfer for decades. Been around the PGA Tour. Been around the game, and you see pictures, and you're like, you never purposefully purchase anything of note. You never tried. You could have. You were around it, and you just accumulated things, just hoarded things, is absolutely right. And granted, I'm looking from a specific standpoint where I'm looking at a collection and trying to pick out the key pieces. What are the key pieces? What's the best item you have? If you can't answer that, then you just have an accumulation of items. Find a key piece or seek it out. I don't care if it takes you a decade. What area do you like? All right, my grail, the item I want the most. It might take me 10 years to get it, to afford it, to find it, whatever it is, but I'm going to find that one day. That's when it really pays off. Do that. I don't care what price point it is, just do that.
Yeah. Do you think it's something primal about people just accumulating material things? I mean, we talked earlier about, you know, collectibles and memorabilia is really about stories more so than anything, but do you think there's something primal in there?
I think I think it's like satisfying a need or an itch when you accumulate things in a quantity way. You got packages showing up from eBay, or you buy something when you're at a golf tournament or whatever, and but it's satisfying it just for that moment, not long term. So, I mean, it's like a business. Deferred gratification makes you the most money. So you can either keep buying thing at every golf tournament you go to, or every golf shop you go to, or every antique store you go to, or whatever else, or you could not do that, and then once a year, every other year, spend a few grand on something that otherwise you wouldn't be able to afford or wouldn't want to spend or whatever. It's more difficult to do. It just is, but
Yeah.
it's worth it.
Yeah. Kind of the Warren Buffett approach to collectibles, playing the long game versus the quick hits, the dopamine hits
Yep.
that everybody's
It's the
chasing out of.
dopamine hits are way easier to do. It's like fake fulfilling in the moment, and there's nothing wrong with it if you are then happy at the end of the day. But if you want to create a meaningful collection that has value monetarily and otherwise, I would just do it a different way. But it's difficult. Most people do it wrong. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as we're kind of coming to a close here, I'm curious, given just your experience with the sport and collectibles, all the memorabilia that you've, been able to see and transact and all these different things. From a historical standpoint, if you could go back in history and watch one shot or one round, what would it be and why?
Okay, I've got two possible answers, but I'm going to go with the second one. The first one was going to be anything young Tom Morris related. I'm obsessed with young Tom and old Tom Morris. Young Tom died in his mid 20s, was basically the Tiger Woods of his era, was beating all these old guys, won the British Open 3 times in a row. They didn't have a tournament next year because they had a trophy to play with, came back and won it a fourth time in a row. But my answer is actually not that. It is the 1913 U.S. Open at Brookline. Francis Ouimet against Ted Ray and Harry Vardon. It's the tournament that put American golf on the map. I live 15 minutes from Brookline. It's a special place to me, and being there, just Francis Ouimet obviously grew up across the street. Wasn't a kid that came from money. That wasn't how the game was played back then. That seemed to put golf on the map in the U.S. It seemed to make golf. It was like the American version of what Old Tom Morris was doing in Young Tom Morris, where golf can also struggle with this class issue, this money versus not money, gentlemen versus from the other side of the tracks. We needed to learn that in America too, and that was Francis Ouimet. He was just a better golfer that week. Uh, and it wasn't a fluke. He proved it, by winning the U.S. Amateur twice. It was not a fluke, even though at the time I'm sure it seemed like it. Did he have home field advantage? All this stuff. I mean, yeah, sure, but like he beat the best in the game, and so that would have been the one to be at. I think golf changed that moment, and it seemed like it was like people knew it happened right away. Like it made headlines everywhere, and like everyone was so excited that Harry Varden was over here playing, and here this 20-year-old American caddy beat him, and so that's the one. If I could be there for that, I'm sure it would have felt as special as it kind of seems now. 113 years later.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. I love that. I've not been up to the Northeast to play golf yet. It's definitely up there. Obviously, once I recover from my surgery and stuff, it'll be on the bucket list. But yeah, there's definitely a number of courses that I want to get up to the Northeast and play. And obviously, so much rich history up in that part of the country because of the 13 colonies and how the United States of America started, right? Just so much rich history in general, golf stuff aside, up in that part of the country. But um, favorite course that you have played to date? What comes to mind?
Oh man, I've played a lot of the good ones, most of the good ones in the U.S. at least. Favorite. I mean, Cypress Point is the place. If you had to answer, it's too obvious of an answer. I hate giving obvious ones. It's that one. If you had one more round, or walk with your dad, or before you died, or something, it has to be Cypress Point. Um, uh, yeah, I'm trying to think of a better answer. That's good. I think one that doesn't get enough talk about that I love is Peachtree. Peachtree, Bobby Jones's only other co-design, like Augusta National, but it's more of an untouched Augusta National. It's Trent Jones back, his, I mean, just a flawless design and a time capsule. Peachtree, I think, doesn't give it get enough credit. I think that'd be one of my favorites up there, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah. What about bucket list course that you've not yet played?
So I've done most of the U.S. ones and a lot of the ones in like Scotland and Ireland and stuff. So bucket list for me is Australia, anywhere in Australia, New Zealand, that area of the world I've never been to. Um, so yeah, I want to see Terry Eady, but I want to see Royal Melbourne, like the bunkers at Royal Melbourne is what I want to see the most. It's just so far, and if I go down there, I'm going to want to play it all. So then I'm going to need like a month or at least 3 weeks, and 3 weeks is hard to come by. So it's a time thing. I know I'll get there eventually, um, but yeah, that's the one. And then I've done a lot of like the open road courses and stuff in Scotland, in England, but I want to play more of the kind of off the beaten path ones. I
Hmm.
want to go play these gems, because it's too easy your first few trips. Not even your first trip, your first few trips over to Scotland, you got to play the hits. And then when you go a couple years later, you want to play them again, and it's great and they're phenomenal. Um, North Berwick, just a special place. I got to play there a couple weeks ago again. Muirfield, special place. But I want to go play the ones that maybe most Americans don't, see. And I'm realizing the more I've traveled, all the Americans are the same. They want to play all these famous ones, and they drive by all these great golf courses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got to take a special traveler that is like, no, no, no. I want to drive by Carnoustie and Muirfield and all these places. I want to play that one down the road.
Yeah,
Because some of the most special moments in golf aren't at the most famous golf courses. They're just with your buddies in special places.
yeah, yeah. 100%, 100%. I like that. Um, so what what else is going? What do you have? What do you have in the works right now that you're excited about? What are there any exciting things coming down the pike with Golden Age auctions? What are you most excited about for call it the rest of 2026?
Yeah, we've done a cool thing the last couple of years where we moved to these themed auctions where we'll have a Scotty Cameron auction, then we'll have an antiques auction, and then we'll have, so we do these things where sometimes like our Masters auction has just a little of everything in it, and that's always fun. But we're doing these kind of themed auctions as we grow and as we get into these different categories. So yeah, we go from Scotty Cameron auction, and then we do antiques auction, and then we'll do like a premier auction that's just kind of best of the best type items. I'm working on a Claret jug that a caddy got from a very famous Open Championship victory. And so that's one item I'm working on. And we just picked up, we're going to have our first ever golf card auction, like baseball cards, but golf cards. We've sold individual cards. It's like the one collecting area in golf that we're not the kind of the dominant force in. And so when I was just in Scotland, I mentioned playing North Berwick and Muirfield a couple weeks ago. We went over there, and picked up these vintage golf cards. I'm talking about Bobby Jones, Walter Hagen. These were tobacco cards that came in tobacco, little cigarette packs over there. You think of like a baseball got Ty Cobb and Honus Wagner cards and things like that, Babe Ruth. These are golf cards, and they're super rare. No one really collects them. There's a few guys that do, and then some of them sell for many thousands of dollars. But they are just so insanely cool. And for some reason, I think just because how rare they are and not that big over here, we haven't gotten into them much. And so that's kind of it's hard to find new categories to get into, and that'll be a fun one. So I had fun kind of geeking out over that over there, and just picking it up over there where this was just some old guy. He had passed away, but that collected cigarette cards, and it's just kind of super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I think I had many, many takeaways from our conversation, but I think being disciplined about my own personal collectible strategy is definitely high on that list. I think I've also got to maximize my earnings so that way I can, buy the
Mm-hmm.
best of the best with all of these different things. But no, Ryan, it's been a real pleasure and an honor to have you on, just to sit here and learn about your story and everything else. Where can people find you? What's your website, social media channels, all that good stuff?
Yeah, just Golden Age Auctions. Instagram is kind of the most fun way to follow us right now. It's where we're probably most active. Instagram's been a fun thing for us the last couple few years, where our followers been growing as we're posting some of these antique clubs and things like that that you just give like a cool little history lesson, but in a fun visual way. So that's been really awesome how see how Instagram's kind of grown our followers, especially just kind of younger collectors or just kind of golf enthusiasts. So Golden Age Auctions on Instagram is probably the best way.
Awesome, awesome. Well, look, if you ever find yourself down in Texas, give me a shout. Would love to host you at my club and get a chance to tee it up, or whenever I finally recover and make my way up to the Northeast, would love to tee it up with you in person and continue this
Yeah,
as
get up here.
well.
We got a lot of great golf up here, and I can hopefully get us on most of the good ones. So wherever you want to come play, get your leg better and coming up here.
Awesome, awesome, man. Well, like I said, I really appreciate you coming on. Yeah, we'll get everything squared away with posting and get this all ready to go. But yeah, everybody go out there, go find some auctions you want to participate in, and get your wallet ready.
Sounds good, man.
All right, thanks so much, Ryan.
Yep, see you, bud.
Appreciate it.